With all of those points that you rightly point out, including a collapse in living standards, why aren't you running away with this thing?
That collapse in living standards is real. In fact, Australians have gone backwards by about 8%.
Yeah, so why aren't you running away? Why are the polls going the other way?
Under Labor. Well, there's always going to be a clear choice at an election, and we expect polls to tighten. That's not a surprise in the least. The most important thing is what's happening on the ground. Here in Victoria, we've seen the evidence of what happens with 10 years of a bad Labor government that has mismanaged the economy. That's why Victoria is going to be such a central focus for this election. And everywhere I go, they're telling me something very consistent, which is they've had enough of a bad Labor government in Victoria, and they can't afford 3 more years of Labor federally.
Just a couple of policies then, Jane. Do you think your work from home pivot was a miscalculation, given there's been no bump, particularly among women?
Well, let me be very clear, Pete. We don't really care what the private sector does. The private sector makes its own decisions for its workplace. In fact, this is about the public sector. This is about the public service. And the public service now have a 61% rate of working from home. Every dollar that a public servant earns is a dollar that has been earned by somebody else and paid in the form of taxes. Now, we know that Katie Gallagher herself did a review into working from home arrangements within the public service. She asked the APSC Commissioner to do this because there does seem to be something's moved very much out of whack with the private sector. And we're now hearing stories about people, working from home, but in fact travelling around Australia in a caravan with their family, or stakeholders turning up to a department, flying into Canberra for a meeting with their teams, only to be shown into a meeting room where everybody dials in. That doesn't meet the expectation of
But on the whole, though,
taxpayers.
the Productivity Commissioner says it can benefit the economy.
Will always remain. Actually, the Productivity Commissioner said working from home full-time, in fact, can actually detract from productivity. That were her own words. That's the government's Productivity Commissioner. Now, flexible work's always going to remain. Of course it's going to remain. But it's most important that it works not just for the individual, but it works for the department, it works for the team. It has to work for everybody. That's how it works in the private sector. That's how it should work in the public sector.
All right, so you're going to hold the line on that one. Now, is it reasonable to ask how much cheaper our gas bills are going to be if more of it is set aside? Otherwise, why vote for it? I mean, is there a ballpark on how much people might save?
Don't you think that it's so important to have a policy on gas that you can actually deliver on? Because let's face it, Anthony Albanese's energy policy, not only have they gone silent on energy policy, but in fact they've ripped up the modelling that they used prior to the last election, where they promised 97 times to reduce your energy bills by $275.
Right, so you're not making that promise.
So that is gone. We've come out with an alternative, a genuine policy that will inject more supply of gas into our system, bringing prices down as quickly as possible. That's the most important thing. And it's a genuine plan that's been worked up with industry, in conjunction with industry, so that we know that it can be done.
All right.
A gas reservation has worked in West Australia. It's going to work on the East Coast as well. The most important thing is we bring those energy prices down soon.
Okay.
And more importantly, in the long term, we have a vision to replace dirty coal-fired power stations as they retire with clean, zero-emissions nuclear energy.
I've got to go, Jane, but just a final one here. If the RBA holds tomorrow and Trump's tariffs target us in a big, big way on Wednesday, can things swing in your favour?
There's a lot of ifs in that statement, Pete, and I don't think we can work on those types of hypotheticals. What I can assure you, though, is that whatever happens tomorrow, you're poorer under Labor.
We'll leave it there. Jane, see you soon.